A very good afternoon to everyone. I'm Professor Shireen Moti, Assistant Professor of Law and Director of Alumni Relations at OP Jindal Global University. OP Jindal Global University started in the year 2009 under the visionary leadership of our Chancellor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, and our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar. In a span of a decade, we have been recognized as an institute of eminence, and in 2021, Jindal Global Law School was awarded the 76th rank amongst law schools globally by QS World Rankings. We at OB Jindal Global University are delighted to have Ms. Kanta Singh, Country Program Manager at the United Nations Women and Achieving Gurukul Leadership Fellow from the University of Oxford with us here today to speak to us about careers at the United Nations. UN Women is an organization dedicated to gender equality and the empowerment of women. Ms. Kanta Singh is a woman of substance who has led the movement for gender equality in India from the front for now over 25 plus years. She's a stalwart and a pioneer in the field of women's rights, spearheading initiatives at the United Nations Women for Gender Equality.
Thank you so much. And it's great pleasure to be with you today. I have been invited several times to speak with OP Jindal University, but I could never make it. This is the first time I'm speaking to some of the students, old students and the new ones, first time. And Raj has been telling me to come and, talk to them in person, but never got a chance. So thank you so much for inviting me also because it's a Women's Month. And let me also say this century belongs to women. So why do we also confine ourselves to days and months and years? So great to be here with all of you. And I apologize once again for being late. Thank you so much.
It's our delight that you are here with us, and we are in for a lovely conversation, all of us. So my first question to you, ma'am, is that you have been doing this outstanding work in the area of gender equality and human rights since more than 2 decades now. How did you get started on this journey? There has to be a trigger to all of this. And what has some of your key experiences been while working in the area of women's rights? Because it can get tough. And what keeps you motivated even today to pave that way for gender equality?
Okay, so let me just go back to where you people are sitting, Sonipat. I was born in Sonipat district, and a village which is 35 kilometers from where you people are, or used to be, and now you're all working from home and studying from there. So I was in a village studying there. But the major trigger point that time, you don't understand. Actually, when you're young, you don't know if these were trigger points, but definitely some of the things really didn't go well with me even as a child. For example, my bhabi, when she came home and she would take ghungat, and I didn't like it. Or as a woman, she would not be allowed to stand at a particular location saying no because men frequent that place. And I said no, but or my brothers will have special privileges in some way. उनको घी और ज्यादा मिलेगा, all those things. So those kind of I didn't feel good about those things. So I started challenging these gender norms from the very beginning. I used to tell my mother that I'm never going to be a teacher, for example. And I used to tell her that I'm never going to be just sitting at home and doing nothing, like you people are working, but your work never gets counted. Anytime somebody, my Tauji will come from outside and will say, "Tum log sara din karte kya ho?" And I used to say, but my mother has been working the whole day. Why does he say this? And I said, I'm going to, and my mother used to say, because the money is with them. And I said, if the money is with him, then maybe I'll do something which will get me money. Why would I work in the fields? Why will I work at home? I'll get the money and let him do the other things. So those were some of the things I remember I used to have conversations around. Also, I got into sports when I was young. And in sports, you would find that the prize money would be different. The diet, the per day allowance would be different for girls and boys. And I'm talking about those days. Now I think girls have made a way that they probably have fought for it, and we also fought for them. So we started fighting about these inequalities from the very beginning. That, we also need special food because we are playing for the state. And so with great difficulty, we could manage that. In one incident, I remember Mr. Chotala used to be the chief minister. And he invited some players, ex-players to this tournament, state level tournament. And after the current teams were playing, he said 1 lakh rupees for men and 50,000 for girls. And all of us, without any pre-discussion, all of us just got up and said, no, you can't do that. girls have to work doubly hard to reach where they have. So if not more, you will have to give equal price money. That was a small incident, but what happened thereafter is that he invited us to have a discussion around this. He said, why don't you people write something about it? We didn't know it was to be a state policy. Haryana was one of the first states to have a sports policy when some of the recommendations that we gave were about government jobs, cash prizes, also equal prize money. So some of those things I remember were the early gains, as they said. And that gave me the courage to continue thinking about these. When I was studying in my master's program, my guide told me that I should study about the problems of old people. I had no clue, and I said, no, I'll study the problems of old women only. And he said, hey, why are you just differentiating between men and women? I said, no, because I am very sure women have specific problems. These problems are not common. Of course, there are certain things which are common, but women will have additional problems. So let me study that. So the mindset probably was such that when I started working, and I got married at an early age, immediately after in fact, in the second year of my master's program, went around the country. So everywhere women were treated differently. Even in army, where it is fairly advanced in that sense, and they say army people give a lot of respect to women, and they do actually for all ceremonial occasions. But I found that many women in army were also facing domestic violence those days. So these things used to trouble me a lot. So when I actually started working, when my children were born, that is when I started working. It was fairly late. I was 30, almost 30 plus, when I started working. And so this was a natural choice that I start working on women's issues, women's rights, and awareness was something that I started with, saying gender issues were not known. Even in the development sector, women and men were not very aware of how these things happen. So that was the beginning, and it's been almost 25 years now. So it's been a very, very, very interesting journey. Some things keep taking my mind back to where I started, and those issues still remain, particularly in Haryana. How honor killing, how sexual violence, how lack of property rights, and which is one of the most difficult area to work in Haryana. It troubles me a lot. I unfortunately never got a chance to work in Haryana other than the 4 years from 2015 to 2019. I never got a chance to work in Haryana, though I have worked in all other parts of the country. But good that I'm talking to the young students and people who have just started their career. Probably it's good wherever you are, just start looking at things from different perspectives, whether it is men, whether it is people, differently abled people, whether it is transgender. Everybody has different issues, and not all men are same, not all women are same, but you need a different lens, I would say.
It is so interesting to hear that from such a young age, you were not only able to identify what was wrong in our society, not only India, but across the world, but you also had the courage to do something about it and actually make a career in that field. So it is coming from a deeper sense of commitment. It is coming from something that is so innate to you that is, I think, what keeps you motivated even today. But what is striking is the courage that you showed at a very young age, when things could have gone wrong, but you didn't care any better, and you said, no, I'm going to fight this. So that is something very inspiring. So my next question to you really is that, of course, UN Women is mandated to secure gender equality, to empower women, and it must be running a lot of programs in India and across the world. Would you like to share some key initiatives that UN Women is involved in today, and how can young people get involved, for example, as volunteers, giving this service to major causes?
Sure, thank you. So UN Women is the newest entity in the UN system. There are different agencies, almost 32, I would say, of which about 26 are working in India. Some have token presence, some have huge offices like UNICEF, UNDP, WHO. Now, these are big offices, but there are also smaller teams like 5 people team or 20 people team. UN Women was started, it used to be UNIFEM earlier, it used to be one of the wings, as they say, one of the cells, but now it's a full-fledged UN agency called UN Women. It started 10 years back. And the mandate, of course, is gender equality across the globe. And when you're saying gender equality, and I always keep laughing about it, that UN Women within the UN system has the same position that women have within the world. So because we are fighting for funds, we are fighting for recognition, we are also fighting for equal opportunities in terms of work that we have to do. And so the current Secretary General has given a lot of space to women. He has brought in 50% women in the senior positions within the UN headquarters, even in the country representation. So UN Women has been able to secure those policy level changes in favor of women that we are asking the world to follow. So that is the first mandate, that we become a role model for other agencies, the member countries, to follow in terms of gender equality, in terms of structure. Of course, there's a lot that needs to happen. And so within a specific member country, our mandate is to support the government in terms of policies, in terms of budgets, in terms of programming and legislation. So, and we enter a state, I'm saying member country in the sense, so we call them states.
State and international law, yes.
That's right. So we can only function in a country on the invitation of the local government. So if the government says we need support in terms of gender or some technical assistance, that is the only time we can work. If they say we are okay, we don't want any interference, we don't want any technical assistance, we are still okay with the member country. But in India, fortunately, there's a lot that needs to happen, and Indian government is very open to some of the things that we do. So we help the government in terms of preparing, say, UPRs. So government has to report to the UN and different committees and different bodies from time to time. So we support the government in terms of normative frameworks, in terms of reportings, in terms of also giving technical guidance. So our programs by default are aligned with the government priorities. So if government says, and that's how we work, government says Bihar is a priority state or Uttarakhand is a priority state, we take our work there. Currently, the government is saying aspirational districts are their priority. And so our work is generally around aspirational districts. So, and that is across UN bodies. It's not just UN Women, everywhere. Only thing what we do differently is that we focus on women, and the gaps that there exist, we try to bridge some of those gaps. Second work that we do is that we work very closely with the civil society organizations, academic institutions, to mainstream gender into some of their programs, also bring a sharper focus on women's issues. Third thing that we do is we work with private sector, because financial problems exist in the country, and we have also understood the role of private sector in bringing gender parity. So we work very closely with private sector in India and everywhere else, actually, and make them sign on women empowerment principles. We call them WEPs. These are 7 principles as to how do they hire more girls, starting from there. How do they bring them into value chains? What kind of sourcing structures that they have, procurements, number of steps that they have to take, 7 in fact, and we train them on how to take those steps one by one. Of course, gender-based violence remains a key priority for us, and this includes domestic violence, sexual violence, rape, all those issues that women and girls face. So that's a major work. Political participation of women and political representation is something that is integral to our work. Economic empowerment of women, and this on in which we help the young girls complete their education. We help women entrepreneurs to seek support from the government as well as private sector, seek funding. We also work for skilling and employment. So these are some of the priority areas that UN Women India has. We also take pride in engendering some of the bigger policies, programs that government has. Also, for last 15 years, the continuous work has been on gender responsive budgeting, because government was not looking at the budget from a women's perspective. We started working with Women and Child Development Ministry 15 years back, and that work continues and grows every year. Actually, every state government has started adopting GRB as a tool to address some of the issues women face.
That's a lot. So you're not only covering all the issues that women face, because of course it is a known fact that women and men experience the world differently. And as you had identified during your masters, that no old women have specific problems. That is true for women of any age group. There's just a different way of life, and there's a different way in which life is experienced. And what was interesting about the way you described the role of UN Women was not only that they're focusing on very key priority areas and priority districts, but also bringing the different stakeholders together and aligning us with our international obligations. Because we are signatories to, I keep saying this, I teach constitutional law, I say we have the most progressive constitution, and we have signatories to so many international instruments. And we are also, our Supreme Court has read so many human rights into our right to life guarantee. But still, when we see the condition of women in this country, there is a huge gap between what the law is promising and what it is actually offering.
Absolutely.
And of course, there is a need for law as well as civil society intervention for not only the legal changes to happen, where there is a lot of loopholes even there, but for the society to start accepting women as equal citizens. That is something that I think UN Women is furthering that mandate and actually hand-holding the government to fulfill its responsibilities, which is very much required, because that kind of systems are still developing in India. Though you have signed these international instruments, but how to bring them into operation is a different ballgame altogether. And I think UN Women is assisting in that way,
right,
to the governments. So violence against women, of course, it continues to be a big problem, and majority of the countries in the world are facing it, and it's a form of gender-based violence. And you talked about honor killings, rape, acid attacks. So many of these things are happening in India, domestic violence. And this problem has only grown worse in the pandemic. We have seen increase in the number of cases when it comes to domestic violence. Also, the response of the government agencies when it comes to dealing with these issues has been really something that is not satisfactory and has been criticized internationally. Moreover, not only in India, but across the world, domestic violence has become a pandemic in itself within the COVID-19 pandemic. So how do you think the government agencies can respond better to these situations? How can they muster the strength of the different stakeholders and come up with a toolkit maybe for domestic violence, especially during these pandemic times, because the victim is stuck with the perpetrator, and there are really very few opportunities for them to report the matter. So what do you think can be done differently, and where are we failing in the system of really combating domestic violence during the pandemic in particular?
Yeah, so I don't know if you are aware that NCW had set up a hotline, basically a call center, to record the number of cases that were and the calls that were coming there.
And there was a rise.
75% increase in the number of calls in the first 12 days. And it is not India specific. So let's not take it only on ourselves. Let's not think that only Indian government is not.
No, globally, of course, not India, globally.
There's been huge increase in the number of domestic violence cases, particularly because many people lost jobs. They were sitting at home altogether, the family pressure. There's a lot of unpaid care work that women had to do. Even when you are a working professional, you are expected to work at home. And that is India specific mostly because men refuse to share responsibility. As far as state response is concerned, well, being a UN staff, I can't speak about what the government has not done. What I can speak about is what they should be doing. Definitely, we have to have a greater accountability mechanism at each level. So for several years, the Nirbhaya Fund was not spent at all. Not even a penny was spent out of that. So it's not because of lack of resources that action wasn't taken. It's just probably the political will that women's issues don't create headlines, right? And you would remember we discussed about it, that women are not a constituency in that sense, right? Governments, and I'm really surprised the politicians think that women don't have a political voice. Actually, that's changing very fast, and that's changing so soon that these things will start becoming a matter of concern for everyone. So we might as well be ready for it. Women would no longer probably wait for their husbands to tell them where to vote. Probably they'll start using their own mind. It's just a matter of time. Women are getting educated. But beyond that, I think it's because it's not a political will. The funds are not spent the way they should. The our police force, for example, and it's a civil act. Say, for example, Domestic Violence Act is a civil act, and police doesn't come into picture. But every duty bearer also comes from the same society where there's a social acceptance for violence for women, violence against women. That if a woman, I still remember, I before I joined UN Women, I was part of UNDP for 10 years, and I was handling a project on access to justice. And my work used to be with the NALSA and SLSAs. Also, a lot of work with the High Court judges, where judicial academies, we were, trying to mainstream gender into the training. And in one of the paralegal trainings, the NALSA, I won't name the person, but is telling the paralegals that if a husband gives a slap to a wife or once or twice, don't interfere, right? Only when he beats her badly or she complains that you have a role to play. So the social acceptance for violence is so much that nobody even raises an eyebrow if the husband hits her. Even a woman, for example, 50% of the women believe that it's okay if a man hits her. So where do you go? What kind of, and the seriousness that state needs to have is when women will start complaining, when there will be thousands and thousands of women marching to the protection officer or the police station, which remains the first port of call, government will have to take some action. But women are also not doing that. Within the family also, everybody is telling her not to, raise the issue. It's a family matter. Even the police person who comes to the house says it's a family matter. The social worker comes and says it's a family matter. So everything that a woman does becomes a family's owner, right? So we should not talk outside. So government has not been pressurized enough to do something about it. And because we also talk in different pockets, we don't talk in a collective voice. And there's no one representative body like you have CII or FICCI, which is representing the interest of women within the policymaker space. Women's voices are not heard in that sense. So government can be, I would say, lenient about it. So, but a lot needs to happen in this direction, because if 50% of your talent pool is not being able to exercise their rights, different kinds of rights freely, the productivity will be much lesser than what we should have. And there's an economic price for domestic violence, and that has been studied several times by several people. We all need to know that.
Definitely. That is very interesting. Of course, the government is wanting to do things, but the problem is that the people themselves are not coming forward. And then it's a cyclical issue, because if you look at the PWDVA Act, which is the specialized legislation for domestic violence, you have so many provisions where these are support systems. There are support systems to help women who come out and complain, but that hasn't worked very effectively. And also, it's a big step for a woman to step out and complain against her husband, because then she is financially cut off, she is stigmatized socially, and those are things that are really weigh very heavily on her. So she's not judged in a good manner. So that's the whole problem with the issue. But I think we are getting better, because we have a specialized legislation. We have more women reporting, which is great, because earlier women weren't reporting at all. And though domestic violence is something that men and women both face, but factually speaking, because there's a lot of statistics on this and studies on this, that it's a gendered problem, because women are the victims. Majority of the victims are women. So that's interesting to hear that the government is trying to do things, that we have to do better as a civil society and as survivors, people who are survivors of domestic violence, to actually come and speak their truth. But then the state also has to support that honesty of the citizens themselves. Okay, so
the state is trying to do what says a one-stop crisis centers have been set up. India has some of the most progressive legislation, that, being a law student. The implementation is very tardy, very, very, problematic everywhere, because, and the major problem lies with the duty bearers. You can have the most progressive law being implemented by the the people who are not sensitive to the issue at all, and it will fail. Like
Yes.
what Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar used to say, that you can have the most stupid law in that sense, and if the person handling it is sensitive, can use it to the benefit of the people.
Exactly.
And that is the problem India has. We don't
Yes.
have proper implementation of any law. For example, forget about only domestic violence.
I agree. And that is something that is a continuing issue, and as we have to build the capacities of our people in order to implement the law in the right spirit.
Right.
Excuse me. So I know one of your passions is to see women in leadership roles. So why do you think it is important for women to take up key leadership roles? And what are some of the steps that are being taken in this direction in India specifically?
So there's a lot of positive noise around the world now on leadership. The current theme of the CSW right now taking place in New York is also on leadership decision making. Why we need more women at the leadership is because for multiple reasons. One, we are 50% of the population. Issues regarding women, decisions regarding us are taken without us being present there. One is it's not that men don't want us to have rights. It's just that it doesn't come to them. They are not geared to think like a woman does. So to represent our issues, we have to be present there. Nothing about us without us. So we have to be on the table to bring the right perspective, number one. Secondly, to bring in sharper focus on issues that are related to common people. Say issues of education, health, and wherever there are more women in the policy making or in decision making bodies, you will find that, and there are several studies to demonstrate that women, wherever women are in decision making, there have been overall development in that area. If they are actually making decisions. It's not like panchayat, where many times we give examples, and panchayats will also start changing very soon. Wherever you have an independent woman who is taken charge of a panchayat, who's not being driven by her family or her husband, she has done remarkable work, and there are thousands and thousands of examples now. Also, we are sitting in a country where there are issues. In fact, most of the problems in this country are related to gender issues. We are 134th out of 149 countries on gender markers. So if that is the statistic, why don't we bring in more women there? In parliament, we are 14%, in judiciary, we are 7% total, but 7% overall. Most of them are in the junior level. You know how Supreme Court has either one judge or two judges, sometimes none. Right? High courts have very few women judges. Corporate sector, we never had women in the boards. In fact, very few women were on the boards. Now it is mandatory for companies to have at least one woman in the board, and many companies are still lagging behind. Also, in the health sector, during the pandemic, you must have seen that 70% of the workforce at the lower levels, say nurses and assistants, were women, and only doctors are only 30%. So they were the frontline workers, and they were bearing the brunt of the pandemic. What I'm saying is that we need more women to bring in holistic development in any country, because some issues are concerning women, so they are better suited to represent those issues. Secondly, to think of the planet, think of the sustainability, think of the children, think of their education. We need women, because women have been taking care of all these aspects from the very beginning. So we need women for those roles. Also, which country will progress if you don't use the entire talent pool? That's how we are lagging behind.
Yes.
So women have to be on the table. They have to find a seat on the table, and it's high time that we start asking for it. Good that women have started asking, and people like you and other young women who are unapologetic about it, saying, hey, we deserve to be there.
Yes. It's because you paved the way for us to ask that question, even because the voice is the first thing, and then you act on that voice, and raising the voice itself is a rebellious sort of act when it comes to asking for political participation of women in specific.
Yeah.
So many of our participants today, Kanta ma'am, have this ambition of working at the United Nations, and especially at the United Nations Women. These are bright young kids, mid-career professionals, and they really want to know that, how can they start preparing themselves for a job at the United Nations. So there's a dream aspect of it that they want to work at the UN and contribute towards gender equality in specific for UN women. And then there's a practical aspect to it, that how do they practically start taking those incremental steps so that one day they can work for UN women.
Though I may not be the best person to ask this question, I took 20 years to to just the shooting in the dark. So I had a passion to be in the UN seriously since I was very, very young. And it was too big a dream for someone like me who came from where I came from. हरियाणा के आज के दिन भी you'll be surprised, हरियाणा से अभी भी UN में लोग नहीं हैं. आप गिनती कर सकते हैं 2 or 3 people, और वो भी होंगे गुड़गांव को हरियाणा नहीं कहे तो आप है ही नहीं फिर लोग. Because it's very difficult for a small town person to think of a job in UN. But you people, all of you are in that sense privileged in terms of education. At least your education could be compared with anything like New York University or Columbia or whatever. I mean, you are as good as any other university in the world. But I came from Haryana Agriculture University and studying rural sociology and agriculture extension and rural economics. And, who the hell cares for that kind of a degree? So it was very difficult. Also, there was information gap. I didn't know what I was applying for and what would that job mean for me. Because the dream was so big to get into UN, I really didn't know what I was applying for. Every position will feel like I can do this also. I can do accounting also. I know nothing about accounting actually. But in my jest, I would say I also applied for every position. So for young people and people like you, just try to understand if UN is your dream career, just start understanding the different work being done by different agencies. Times have also changed. I find very, very, very a different kind of people coming into UN now. So 3 things, and let me talk about the myths that exist. And I keep talking to many young people on daily basis because I respond on LinkedIn, I respond on everything that comes to me. So as a result, I get a lot of queries. One is that UN prefers people who have already been working with UN. Not true. UN would take anybody who has the fire. UN would take anybody who's good at his job or her job. In fact, I can see that almost 90% of staff has changed in the last 5 years. When I joined in 2009, only a couple of people are left. Everybody has changed, and maybe many times over. That means UN is ready to give chance to more and more people. UN, the age profile of UN, at least in India, I would say, average is about 30 years. When I joined, Khalifas were sitting there. Seriously, I'm not joking. I was one of the older ones though, but there were people 10 years senior to me that time. Age profile is changing now. So good for you guys. Third is, and that is a myth that UN will take somebody from inside. Yes, they want somebody because the systems are slightly complex, but they prefer anybody who's young, bright, who has ideas, who believes in innovation, who believes in community, who believes that we are here to do good. So you stand a chance, number one. Second is that you have to be a specialist to get into UN. Yes, you have to be aligned to one of the thematic areas we are working in. You don't have to be specialist. All specialists come as consultant. You come as a staff member, and there are a number of entry points, and I'll come back to that later. The third myth that I see is that government influences a lot of hiring in UN. No, it doesn't. You don't have to know anybody anywhere. In fact, if Sirin, you apply and say, Kanta Singh, it'll go against you. Seriously. So never ever use anybody's name in the UN, whether you are some IAS officer's son or a judge's son, don't use that name. It won't go well. So that means UN wants to be fair, transparent. And why I can say is that if I am sitting there, it's a proof enough that nobody knew me. No, and there was no way I could be taken because there were 5 internal candidates in the day I was interviewed. They were not taken, I was taken. So one is that if you want it badly, you will be there, right? If you are preparing yourself, just start aligning. If you want to work on women's issues, then you start doing your work in that. Why I'm saying is that there's something in the job description, there's something called relevant experience. So you may have 20 years of experience in teaching, but you haven't worked specifically on gender, and the job requires you to have work on gender responsive budgeting, and you have no experience. Sorry, your application will go in a black hole. Right. So it's very important to look at the relevant work experience section. So education, if they say law degree or any humanities degree or master's degree in any social sciences, and you have a law degree, you are counted. So highlight that. Secondly, if they say relevant experience, highlight the relevant experience section on top. If they say program management experience, highlight that on top, so that the machine doesn't take the name out. So 90% of the applications get taken out at the computer stage, right? The machine is, the software is designed in a way that most of the applications just go out, like mine did for 20 years. I didn't know where the applications were going. Nobody was responding because nobody sees those applications. It's just the machine, sorting. So that's one. There are different points in entry points for young people, particularly. There's something called UN volunteers. When I'm saying volunteers, it's not an unpaid volunteer thing. It's a paid volunteer. There's a separate agency for UN volunteers, UNVs. So UNVs are given different types of work. Sometimes they are placed in a district with the DM. Sometimes they are working with the ministries. So it's a full-fledged work in any area of work. It could be on gender, it could be on elections, it could be on environment, it could be on anything. So that's a great entry point for young people with 2 years of experience. After that, there's something called service contract. And people who have studied in Jindal Global should not, and I'll tell you the levels. There are different levels even within the service contract. So people like you should not get into administrative jobs. I've seen many young people being stuck in these positions. They don't know when they apply from outside, they don't know what they're applying for, and then they get stuck. It's difficult to, and there are examples of people who have joined in administrative jobs and gone to programs, but it's a difficult journey. Like in filmon mein kehte na typecast ho gaya, so you get stuck at that point.
Stereotypes.
Right. So you start at somewhere like SB3 in the service contract section. SB3 is a level where programs start, and it should look for programmatic positions. That's the minimum level.
Okay.
In the and then there are SB3, SB4, SB5 positions. There are 3 levels, so nothing less than SB3. And SB3 also look at the programmatic work. Don't look at assistant and associate. Okay. Those are not for you people. Okay. Once I interviewed a Colonel Saab from Army for an assistant's position. He said, your salary is 80,000. But I said, listen, you will be booking my tickets. Sorry, don't do this. In the interview, we are not allowed to, but on some pretext, I asked the other panelists to go out and say, get this and get this. And when I was the hiring manager, and I told him, don't join here. They'll take you, but don't. Because it's not your level, and you get so frustrated then.
Definitely.
So look at programmatic positions, and in the area which you think or you are passionate about. Then there is the third type of entry, which is fixed term appointment. Those are considered staff. People like us who are managing the teams, people who who are heading departments, people who are there for a long time. So these are fixed term staffs. So don't apply for less than NOA, National Officer A. If you are trying to go out of the country, there you'll find P2, P3 positions for young people I'm talking about. So these are some of the, and again, look for programmatic. So if it is NOB position, but finance, and you haven't done finance, then it's of no use to you. Look at the job description as to what it's asking you to do. Right? So I have told UNV, I had told service contract, I had told fixed term appointments. Last is the consultant. When you become expert and you think you don't want to work full time, you can work 20 days a month on a fixed, per day cost. Then again, but you have to be expert in something, because consultants are required to deliver from day one. Nobody spends time in preparing you or training you and building your capacity. In other modalities, organizations spends time and money to train you for the role. As consultant, you have to start delivering, because you are supposed to be an expert on that. So these are the four entry points for all young people. Similarly, from outside outside the country, again, look at P2, P3 positions in a programmatic division. So that will be that. Those are the entry points for UN, and there are several positions now. From the first batch of Jindal University, you people are now you should be getting there, in terms of work experience. And unfortunately, we don't have the access to justice program. I used to have interns from your university that time, but now we don't have that program. It's closed now. But there are several other programs where you need law graduates, where education may not be that important if it's considered social science in that sense, unless specified. But if you have work experience in that area, then it is okay with you, right? But you have to keep trying. Also, there are two kinds of places where you can look for job. One is careers or jobs. Different agencies advertise under careers, and some say jobs. UNDP says jobs, other UN Women says careers. And there's something called procurement. Procurement happens for consultants. And rest of the positions are advertised on the careers job section. So keep looking at those websites. Different agencies have their own, but UN Women also advertises on DevNet jobs. UN Women also advertise on UNDP website, and we have our own website where we apply. For a single position, average applications we get about 800.
That's even harder than getting into the BCL program at Oxford, I would say.
But the good thing,
acceptance rate is really low.
Yeah, good thing is that 90% get sorted out at the first level. About 100 applications come to the HR. HR gives 20 applications to the hiring manager. Hiring managers brings them down to 6. 6 people take written test, and 4 or 5 people are interviewed, and 2 people get shortlisted for final selection. Then their reference checks and those things happen. Good thing is that even if I'm the hiring manager, I don't feature in at the second place. So if I'm taking the written paper, I won't be in the interview panel. So 12 different people are looking at one candidate. That means there's no chance that there will be some baibandi or nepotism or this. If my daughter is applying for a UN position, I'll have to declare from the very beginning that this is my daughter, and I cannot be part of any selection process anytime of the 12 people that are involved in the process. So I cannot be anything. So it's that fair. So trust the system, please. If this is your dream job, then continue looking for it. It may take time, don't lose heart, but you'll be there.
That's so actually that's so accurate, and it's actually quite calming to know that the process is so transparent, and if everyone has an equal opportunity, and only the person who is the best prepared will get the job, because there's multiple screening. It's not just one application or one interview, but there's several stages. There's a written test also, and they're really trying to match the skills of a person with the job requirements. And you've shared so many entry points, so there are opportunities. It's just that people have to take that plunge and say, okay, I want to be at the UN. So what are the first few steps that I can take, and then continuously work in that direction. But there are a few follow-up questions. You mentioned about this computer software system wherein many of these applications get rejected. If you could elaborate on that more. And the second question, the second follow-up is that what does the interview panel look for in a prospective employee when it comes to? I know it's going to be subjective depending upon the job description.
No,
What is it?
some of it is subjective, but some of it is quite objective. In fact, the
Okay.
application that come to the system is, so they also have a criteria saying masters in social sciences, and there are degrees written there, you know. So law, fortunately, is one of those. Then you have to put that I'm masters in so and so subject, right? Relevant experience is one, right? There's no age discrimination in UN, but relevant. So minimum number of experience, years of experience, but relevant experience. So highlight those. So people who don't know, don't highlight those things. Also, if I'm saying people who have worked on women's rights, so 2 years of experience on working on women's economic rights, for example, or environment, plastic waste management. If you don't have plastic waste management of 2 years experience, but you have environment experience of 15 years, your application will not be sorted.
Okay.
So don't apply for jobs where you don't have relevant numbers of relevant experience for those many years. Otherwise, then you'll get fatigued and you will stop applying, thinking UN is not transparent. Right? So just that, those are the 3 major criteria. Education, qualification, relevant. I'm highlighting relevant experience. Also, if it is a programmatic position, then look at the programmatic. So program management, financial management, stakeholder management, team management. They would highlight those competencies. So look at those competencies and make your CV as per the competency.
That is very important.
You will have to retweak your CV several times. So look at that. And your CV should basically, I learned it much later though, as I'm saying, because there was nobody to guide. Now I guide many young people because and it's much easier than to get in. Because at least if your application sees a human face, then at least there's some chance that probably something will stuck there. The interview panel. If I'm the hiring manager, I'm part of the selection process generally, but mainly in the interview panel, because the written tests can be checked by any other staff. And generally, if it's a UN women position, we take 2 people from different agencies to check those papers to just bring transparency there. So, and the average score is taken. And the average score is shared with the interview panel. In fact, it's not shared before the interview. So the 3 people, and even in these 3 people, we have an HR person, the hiring manager, 2 people from different agencies, not from UN Women or I was in UNDP. So 2 people from 2 different agencies, UNICEF or UNESCO or somewhere. As a manager, this is my concern, that I hire the best person in my team. Otherwise, why would I take a headache? Taking somebody, and I don't want to start telling how many people I have been, told that you have to take this person. We haven't. There have been pressures from the government, from people who I knew, friends, many people said, but if the person is not competent, we can't take, and I don't want to take a headache for myself. So I want the best person, number one. Secondly, what we are looking for is very honest, description of what you have done and how you plan to take it. Learning could be taken very supportingly, that this I haven't worked on, but I'm willing to learn. Right? So that is one. So honesty, definitely pay. I'll be impressed by anybody who's honest. The second is that you say, okay, give me 3 qualities of a good leader. I'm just giving a sample question. And some people just start off on the first saying honest, and honest ke upar, then they give a full lectures. I'm saying first you tell the 3 qualities that you believe a leader should have. And then depending on the time available to you, ask them how much time you have to answer that question, and then give description of those 3 things, what you mean by when you're saying honest. But at least first thing is give those 3 things. To my mind, a leader should be 1, 2, 3, and then give description. Many people just get stuck on the first question itself and are not able to. So that is the second tip I would give. And third would be your experience, how you handle so practical situation. Then you will never ask for anything imaginative. So in your experience, when was the last time you handled a government officer who was trying to do this is how did something. It helps if you have had some government experience in dealing with government officials, because that's our primary work. So, and we cannot be rude to a government officer, but we have to be tactful to get the job done, right? So how do you handle the different partnerships? Because we are a convening authority, so we bring civil society and government together on the same platform. So how do you handle these different platforms? One day I'm meeting the prime minister, but next day I'm meeting the most marginalized woman in a district in Kalahandi. So I should be able to handle both. I personally look for somebody who's humble, who doesn't think UN job is something that, will entitle you to something. No. Anybody who has the deepest passion for people, poverty, planet, is my person. Because being nice and being kind is the only is not the only qualification, but it's the first qualification that I look for. That you have to be kind to people, and that starts from right now, right? So if you are not, you're spending somebody else's earned money. You're not earning. You're in a business. You earn money, right? You have to invest a lot of money, and then you have to work hard to earn. We are spending somebody else's earned money, so we cannot not be accountable for that, right? It is meant for people, and it has to go there. So very, very honest, deeply attached to people, and very committed to the work. These are some of the things that we look for. At least I look for those things. And I hire people all the time. Yeah.
That is so kind of you to share not only the experience that you had when you were applying 20 years back, but also to say that these are the qualities that you look for, and from which from the qualities that you described, it seems that you do not only look at the technical aspect of it, the capabilities and the skills, but also if that person has the heart in his job, whether it's coming from the heart, and that is something that then we are at the, in right hands if you are hiring that way, and UN Women is full of those people.
Yeah.
That is great to know.
And we need young people all the time, seriously, because I don't have half the skills that you have, Sireen. You can write better than me. You know technology better than me. You also probably are know more people, because your batch is doing well. So you know many people. What I did, and I just wanted to, and I forgot to tell young people, is that every year, so don't leave learning as a back task. Continue learning. What happens in this sector is, particularly in the development sector, is that there are several fellowships. For last 12 years, every year I do one fellowship. And I generally attend these fellowships with very young people. Okay. So why do I do that? One is that it's a different kind of learning. Also, my network is so big now, that, and they come from different fields. So you get to learn, when you spend time with them, you get to learn about what is happening across the globe, what drives people. So also, how can I seek support when I require? Many of my friends who were in my cohorts in different fellowships are funding me now, right? Because they have seen me through, they know that I will not waste money. I will not let, the money should go where it belongs to. Many of them are funding me, in fact. Also, if I have to discuss ideas, if I need a contact, hey, I'm looking for somebody who can do this. And within 5 seconds, there will be one answer, because the network is so big. So keep applying for these fellowships. They're a great way to learn. Also a great way to expand your network. Also learn for different subjects, because you are doing work in women's issues all the time. In Oxford, I had people who were working on AI. I had no idea about that. And you spend evenings with them, and you understand what they're working and what drives them, right? Somebody's working in the online learning space. There were 2 IS officers with me. So how do you create this network around you, who also becomes your support structure, right?
Yes.
That is very important. So keep learning, keep going back to the basics, where you become a student and learn more.
That is so nice. That don't keep learning to the back burner. Keep investing your time in it because it has
Absolutely.
these multifold, benefits of learning each and every day. And it's very interesting that you have been in your, busy schedule. You have been able to fit in fellowships and really expand your network and also the skills, hone your skills in other subjects which might not be of particular interest to you in your everyday life.
So when you dil mange more, then you have to do more. Because I'm not satisfied with whatever little that I'm able to do. I want to do more. So for that, I have to
You have a
invest.
lot of fire in your belly, ma'am, and we are inspired about hearing about your journey so far. So there are so many questions from the participants, and we are actually over time, but I'm going to deal with some of these questions. So one of our attendees is asking us, one of our participants is asking us, what are some of the opportunities for a young lawyer? So this person is a young lawyer available with the organization, and what would be the nature of work? If you could throw some light
Sure.
on that.
Um, I don't know if people know, my daughter was a law student with all of you, some of you, I would say. And when she wasn't choosing to study law, but I told her that once you are a law student and once you studied law, you are sorted for life in two ways. One is that nobody can take advantage of you. Also, you can't say that I didn't know this was legal, illegal or legal. So you have an advantage. That's the point I want to make. You have an advantage because you understand law, and many of us don't. So start from the advantage point. So you are eligible to also apply for many positions. If you are working on say, I was saying biodiversity, right? An environmental lawyer would be a great asset to the organization. If you are a young lawyer but haven't decided which area of law will you work in, finally you say competition law, this law, you don't know. UN is a great place to learn. Come as a UN volunteer and expose yourself to different things. If you have 5 years of experience of working in a law firm, for example, it may be slightly difficult to find a ready-made solution to that. But then if you have identified that UN is your destination or part of your journey, then start working in one of the areas where UN is working. You take UNICEF, for example. They're dealing with laws related to children. Not only POCSO, but there are different laws related to children. Start studying about that, start working in that area. If you're talking about WHO, it's a UN agency, but there are many laws that govern health. Look at that. So you always have an advantage, because you also understand legal other than the work that you do. Also, people would rely on you for having an eye for detail, right? Because you'll read the contracts, everything very carefully. So I always say law students have an advantage provided they understand that they have an advantage. So always say, and in your interview, just say why it makes you a unique candidate is because you have studied law. And within law, you have studied various aspects of Indian society, Indian community, also the Indian constitution. So you already know about that. So young lawyers, all the best to you.
I think you're absolutely right. We have a deeper insight into people and the society and the laws that govern us, and that is very key in order for, and especially because UN Women works with aligning all of that with the government agencies and how they are working for them to fulfill the obligations. So having a deep knowledge of that is of particular importance.
Right.
And it's true, many of these job descriptions actually require a law degree as one of the qualifications.
They do.
So to the participant, you have a plethora of opportunities. Just go to the UN website and start looking for these opportunities for yourself and for volunteering as well. Quickly, I should share that Neni Singh is what Kanta ma'am is talking about. Neni is a very dear friend of mine and batchmate, lovely 5 years spent with her, and she has been a leader all throughout. She has actually been somebody who's always stood up for causes, and I deeply respect her for that, and that's been her trademark since day one in law school.
She told me not to talk about it here.
Yeah, I don't know how she'll take it, but yes, she is actually a distinguished alumna of OPG in the Global University, and we are proud of whatever she has been doing after graduation. She's doing really well for herself, actually. So, so there's one of the questions where there's a female lawyer, and she said that she's very argumentative in nature, and she's talking about stereotypes that female lawyers face, and females in general, that after crossing a certain age, they're stereotyped, and there's this whole thing that you should get married and have kids. But she wants to do something bigger, and she sees you as an inspiration. So what would your advice be to her?
You know, this is also part of learning. 10 years back, I would have said, hey, yeah, thoda chill, don't have arguments on everything. But now I am a different person. I'll say, please have as many arguments as you can. If this is what you feel you should do, you don't have to feel shy about it. Just be who you are, number one. Secondly, I always tell young people, marriage is not an achievement. Good for those who really believe in the institution, good for those who really like being married. And you have recently married, so all the best for you. And if you find somebody who really knows who you are and who's ready to give you that space. But marriage in itself is really not an achievement. So don't have to prepare yourself for that at all. Prepare yourself for facing yourself. So you prepare yourself that who you want to be, right? And as a woman lawyer, you need to stand for yourself first before you stand for your client, right? Even if you are arguing in the court, or if you are taking up a case, or if you are supporting somebody at home, you need to be argumentative. What makes men different from us is that they don't, even if, I was reading somewhere today that if we as women are allowed to be mad and men are allowed to be sad, there will not be many problems in the world. Because the society puts her in two different brackets saying men have to behave in a certain way and women have to behave in a certain way. And we are not allowed to be mad and men are not allowed to cry because strong men don't cry. That most of the problems stem from there. So be who you are. Don't have to really explain it to anybody that you have arguments or you are argumentative. So good for you. Today I like girls who have arguments. So just go for it.
That's fine. I just have to step away for 1 second. I'll just.
Yeah.
So yes, so actually I completely agree. Marriage is not an achievement, and you should really find somebody who could share your life. You could share your life with them, and they should respect your profession and vice versa. And I think that's changing in today's scenario. And truly, if this person wants to achieve her dreams, she should go for it. And argumentation is important if what she's fighting for is important to her. Then there's a question from one of our attendees. So saying that while applying to UN and other jobs, international non-governmental organization jobs, he has received a feedback that overqualified candidates having more years of experience than required in the job description have applied and chosen. The feedback he's received, somebody who has a lot of experience has been chosen for the position as opposed to this person. How should this person strategize? Shall he apply for jobs where he feels overqualified and has more years of experience than stated in the job description?
So he or she got the feedback that he or she was not selected because they found somebody with more experience, right?
Yes.
So there's a catch here. He or she should continue to apply. That's number one. Sometimes they don't find the right candidates. But if I'm saying the application says, or vacancy announcement says 5 years of relevant experience. But if somebody has 10 years of relevant experience, that doesn't go against that person. So he or she, if everything else being equal and has more experience, would be taken. Because अगर आपको 50 रुपए में 2 किलो आलू मिल रहे हैं तो आप 1 किलो क्यों लोगे? आलू की क्वालिटी एक ही है, right?
It's true.
So that's how it is. But that should not be taken personally. Sometimes you do find qualified candidates who some of them are more experienced than the other, and they not only look at experience, they also look at some of the other differentiators, right? For example, I was applying for an international position for myself for Myanmar. And the person I was number two, I was told later. So I was taking feedback from one of my regional advisors who was in the interview panel, who knows me personally. I was asking her, she's a Japanese woman, as to why I was not taken. And she told me that both of you were equal in terms of marking. But the other lady who was taken, a European woman, she had international experience. So I have traveled to 60 countries, but I have never worked in a country other than India. So, and because it was Myanmar, she was taken because that was a clear differentiator. So when we're saying years of experience is just one part of it, there may be something else that they say, but they won't write that in the letter. UN, unfortunately, in many cases doesn't even write back to the candidates, and that's the sad part. We internally have been telling UN, HR teams that at least let the person know what happened to their application, right? But their point is also right that there are so many applicants, you need two people just to do that.
And 800 applications for every post. I mean, how many emails will go out?
And every week there, at least in UN Women, every week there's a vacancy announcement. So there is a lot that's happening, and there are two HR people. Okay. So it's a lot of work on them. Also, because if it says 2 years of relevant experience, don't take it literally. Basically, they're looking for slightly experienced person who has 4 to 5 years of experience, and that person within the UN allows you to give you little higher money also. For example, if for any UNV position, you'll get a fixed salary. But for any other position, it says 2 years of relevant experience, and you have 4 years of relevant experience, so you can negotiate for slightly higher money.
This is very interesting. This is interesting. So we don't have to take it literally.
Right. So there are steps in UN. So when I joined, I had almost 20 years of experience. So they gave me a higher step than, as compared to somebody who would have come with 5 years of relevant experience, which was the basic qualifying number. But having more years doesn't disqualify you.
So it's really about being smart about it, because they are trying to find the best person for the job, and they'll go to any length to do that. That's why you have this tight process, a very strict scrutiny of the applications and interviews, written test, all of this. And really, if a person is keen enough and smart enough to make the application in the right form, only then and only then he or she will get hired at the
right. Also, they will re-advertise rather than having a substandard candidate.
Oh yeah.
Many times you'll find re-advertised. They have to mention it there. So that means.
But that's also a good. I mean, it's also a good thing, because you don't have too many people who are qualified in the real sense. I mean, you might fulfill the eligibility criteria, but if you sort of to get the job, you need to be the person to get that job.
I must share, Shireen, one of the major problems that we face, and general students probably won't have that, but even JNU students can't write. So the written paper will be so poor, I can't tell you. And many people disqualify because they can't write. Yeah. So good research, good writing skills really help. And you people, I think, do a good job of that. I've seen. To have
yes, there's a lot of rigor when it comes to writing at Jindal, and I think lawyers in general will have an advantage there, because most of our curriculum is just on researching and writing. So we are better trained than other professionals, broadly speaking, when it comes to writing. So I think that's a good point you made, that somebody who has a degree which required a lot of research and writing is somebody who would be able to better.
But not only in the written test, but not only in the written test, but most of the work I do is writing work. I'm writing to the government, I'm writing papers, I'm writing concept papers, I'm writing proposals, I'm writing reports. So, and now I don't take interns because it's become a slightly complicated issue within the UN. People asked for paid interns, and that has made the process very HR led. And that again, like hiring, so it becomes very difficult. Earlier, we were allowed to take students, master's student, as interns if we like the students. There used to be an interview process, but I used to do it myself. So I would always take students, even if they are doing master's first year abroad, I will take those students rather than taking somebody, a PhD student from JNU, seriously, because they couldn't write. And anybody who doesn't write then doesn't solve my problems, right?
Exactly, because majority of your work is writing.
Absolutely. So having good writing skills helps. So,
Okay. It's a good
so
thing. A number of the participants are talking about, the degrees which they have and whether that is something that would appeal to the UN. So one of the students is a Master's in Diplomacy, Law and Business student,
it would
MADLB, Master's in Diplomacy, Law and Business. The other one is International Relations. Somebody has studied psychology.
all
And
welcome.
what do you think?
All
Okay,
welcome.
that's
Yeah, we are so our designation is international civil servant. So like you have your bureaucrats here in India, so we
yes.
in the UN I'm ICS, so international civil servant. So our job is diplomacy. Our job is basically diplomatic in nature, where we have to deal with multi-stakeholders, particularly government. So all these degrees, international relations, everything will be very useful. Though it may not have an edge unless it is applied in the same context, but you are allowed to, you are eligible to apply.
Okay.
And in
All
your
of this
work, you will reflect the difference.
Okay, this is great because it is accepting of people with different educational backgrounds. The key is that you need to match the requirements, job requirements, and follow the process through, which is
Yeah.
great. So now circling back to where we started about gender, and that's my last question for today, and these are the questions that we've taken. I think young people have immense potential, and every citizen of a country has the potential to contribute some way towards achieving gender equality, towards ending violence against women. So, what is your tips or guidance to young people that how in their everyday lives, maybe they are not working on gender specifically, but how can they contribute to a world which is more equal, more accepting of women? Yes.
So one, definitely don't share, don't circulate, don't design these sexist jokes which circulate on the WhatsApp. Don't be part of that. So even if it comes to you, don't send it forward. So that's the first thing. Of course, don't talk about it. Don't laugh at jokes which are sexist in nature. Don't make fun of people. Don't troll women. I was just reading something. You must have seen Jwala Gatta's, thing.
Yes.
Every woman journalist faces a lot of trolling. So if you know somebody who's doing it to a woman, don't. And if this is your area of influence, now of course you can't start fighting with everybody, but don't allow that to happen in your area of influence. What we generally forget is that my bhai hit my bhabi, but what could I do? Of course you could do. A strong resistance there. Protest. Say this is not done in my family, cannot be done. And I will not allow this to happen. I'll complain. Trust me. And I'm a mother now. If my daughter says this cannot be allowed to happen here in this house, I'm scared. When she's saying it so strongly that no, you cannot speak to the maid like this, I'm scared. So if you will use your voice for the right reason, you will be heard. Trust me. And don't allow that to happen. So start looking around. It all exists closer to you. Also your classmate, your work colleague. You see these things happening, some sexist remarks, somebody touching her inappropriately, somebody showing bad content, somebody circulating these things. That's the first thing you have to start doing, saying, not done, closer to me. Of course, we have all fun moments. We are sitting together in the evening, having drinks. People are making sexist remarks also, but say, hey guys, it's in bad taste. This is not good for them. But if you feel comfortable and that's fine, that's up to you. But no, in social life, no, that's a no. Second thing is don't do it yourself. You have gotten married, you have a wife, just consider her as an equal. If she wants to work, very good for her. If she doesn't want to work, just treat her as respectfully as that. Of course, hitting her definitely is a no. Also sharing work at home. These are some of the things that you can do it yourself without making a fuss about it. If you go abroad, you're working in England, your wife is also there, she's also working. How do you think the work is going to happen? Right? You will have to share. So start sharing now. Also, be a patient listener. If a woman is sharing that she faced this challenge or she faced sexual harassment at workplace, don't gaslight her saying you were wearing this and you were doing this. At least that's the minimum that you can do, is to be a patient listener and listen to her. Maybe you are the only one she has who can listen to her. So always think. And last thing that I want to say is, nobody likes a man who behaves differently. All women are looking. वो जमाने के जब वो जो macho hero था ना, सिगरेट हाथ में लेके जो लड़कियों के ऊपर टॉन्ट किया करता था. Now girls are looking for somebody who understands them, who treats them equal, who gives them respect that they deserve. So if you want to be dear to girls and popular amongst women, be that man that they're looking for.
On that lovely note, I am so glad that we had this conversation, and all the participants, I think, will leave the session being more enriched, more inspired, and more informed about starting their careers at UN Women and becoming better citizens, maybe by following the tips that you shared towards the end. Because I think everyone can do their bit. Everybody does not have to be Miss Kanta Singh, but they can do things in their everyday lives. I mean, you are a pioneer, you're an icon. I'm personally inspired and motivated by you. And I have been following your work and will continue to do that. And you've been creating a lot of impact, ma'am. And thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing for women at large. And I think you are benefiting the society at a scale which is unimaginable, because the benefit of your work is not only within women's lives, but improving the society as a whole. Because if you give these opportunities to women, if you improve their lives even by a bit, the entire society benefits. There are benefits at economic level, social level, psychological level, at all levels. Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thank you for
gracing us
inviting
with
me,
your presence
Shireen.
today.
Thanks a lot, and it was lovely talking to you. Hopefully
Lovely
I'll
talking
get.
to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Bye bye,
Yes, and we
everyone.
would love for you to come back and take out time to come and speak to
Sure.
the young citizens of this country and inspire them with all your stories and experiences and
Thank you.
guidance, so that they can
And
also
share my
become
number with
something
people if
good
they
in their life.
share my number with the young people. If they want to reach out to me, I'll be very happy to guide them in
Definitely, ma'am,
whatever
that
way.
would be
I
great.
can't help them in getting to the UN, but I can, whatever I know, I'll be happy to share that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That is so lovely. And thank you to the participants for being so patient today and for really asking questions and contributing to the session. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Have a nice day ahead.